All right, so this is the lesson on parallel and perpendicular lines. So number one, you want to write the equation of a line L for the line L, and this is line L right here. And I'll go ahead and highlight a little bit further. So this is line L, and you want to write the equation of this line right here. And notice that this line L has an infinite number of points on it. All right. In particular, though, you're told that one of the points in that line is the point 2, 5. All right, but notice that each of those lines here has an infinite number of points on them. So you're told that you want to write the equation of this line L, the one that's highlighted, in two forms: point slope form and slope intercept form. Now, what you're told is that line L, the line that you're interested in finding the equation for, is parallel, all right, is parallel to this line here, y equals 3x plus 2. Now, the graph is given to you right here. So you're told that this is the graph of the line of the equation, y equals 3x plus 2. Now, one of the things you need to remember is that these two lines are parallel. You're told that line L is parallel to this line here. In particular, though, you need to remember that parallel lines have the same slope. All right, so parallel lines have the same slope. I'll go ahead and write that right here. So parallel lines have equal slopes. All right, now, the fact that you're told that those two lines are parallel implies that you can easily find the slope of this line right here. And you can easily do that because this equation right here, the equation that has this graph, is already in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And the coefficient of x is your slope. So remember, the slope we denote by lowercase m. And whenever you get y by itself, that's slope-intercept form. And the coefficient of x, whatever you multiply an x by, is the slope. And b, remember, is your y-intercept. All right, so that's where the graph's going to cross the y-axis. It kind of makes sense because if you look at this, b, your y-intercept is 2, and notice that this line y equals 3x plus 2 intersects the y-axis at 2. Okay? All right, now, so in order to find the equation of a line, you need to know two things. You need to know the slope, and you need to know a point on the line. So you need to know the slope and a point on line L. Okay, so you need to know the slope of line L, and you need to know a point on line L. Well, this equation here, y equals 3x plus 2, is in slope-intercept form. So the slope is a coefficient of x, so the slope is 3. So you can see from there that the slope is 3. And a point on that line is 2, 5. So one of the points you're given on that line L is 2, 5. Now, given that information, you can now write the equation of the line in point slope form and slope intercept form. So always, whenever you're given the slope and a point, always go first to point slope form. That's why they call it point slope. It's in the form where you can easily denote the point and you can denote the slope. Now here's point slope form. All right, so point slope form is this. So it's y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. All right, so that's point slope form. And to use point slope form, you need to know the slope, see the variable m, and you need to know a point, x1, y1. All right, so you know the slope and you know a point. So this is x1, this is y1. So it helps to indicate that. So this is the x coordinate, this is your y coordinate. And all you do is substitute. And so you get this. You get y minus y1, which is 5, equals the slope, which is 3, times x minus x1, which is 2. And that is, right here, that is the equation of the line in point slope form. So there's one of your answers. So I'll put the answers right here. So the answers, point slope form, oops, let me put it right here. So the answer is point slope form is this. Y minus 5 equals 3 times x minus 2. Okay, so there's one of them. And that for point slope form, that's all you do. You don't do anything else. Don't distribute or anything. This is point slope form. So point slope form means you want to make sure it looks like this. Y minus y1 equals a slope times x minus x1. All right, now to get it in slope intercept form now, remember slope intercept form, that's this. You got to get y by itself. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here and we're going to solve for y. All right, so now transform, we're going to transform this into slope intercept form. Okay, and so therefore we're going to use distributive property first. So I get y minus 5 equals, and when I distribute the 3, I get 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And finally, to get y by itself, I add 5 to both sides, and notice I'm aligning my like terms. And so I get y equals 3x, negative 6 plus 5 is a negative 1. And so that is your slope-intercept form. So right here I'm going to put slope-intercept form. So those are your answers. It's going to be y equals 3x minus 1. All right, and so that's it. So that is the equation of this line right here. So the equation of this line in point-slope form will be y minus 5 equals 3 times x minus 2. And in slope-intercept form, it will be y equals 3x minus 1. All right, so those equations are equivalent. They're equivalent. They just look different, but they're equivalent because you can always transform this to this and this to this. All right. Okay, and also if you pick any point on this line L right here, any point on the line L, it will satisfy both of those equations. Okay, so that is number 1. Now, notice number 1 dealt with parallel lines. So remember, parallel lines have the same slope. Okay, now the next one has to do with perpendicular lines. And one of the things you need to remember is that when two lines are perpendicular, they intersect at right angles. So this intersection right here is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Okay, so they intersect at right angles. All right, now you want to find the equation for line L, and this right here is line L. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. And so that's the equation. That's the line I want to find the equation of, right here. Right, and again, you want to put it in point slope form and slope intercept form. And you're told that line L is perpendicular to this line right here that has equation y equals 2x minus 3. So there's the graph of that equation, y equals 2x minus 3. Notice again that this is in slope-intercept form. All right, so remember slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And once it's in slope-intercept form, once you get y by itself, you now know the slope and you know the y-intercept. All right, but in particular, the slope of this line here that you're given with the equation y equals 2x minus 3, the slope of that line is 2, the coefficient of x. But remember, if two lines are perpendicular, so if two lines are perpendicular, then the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. Okay, so they're negative reciprocals of each other. So let's kind of remind ourselves what we mean by negative reciprocal. All right, so So when I think about negative reciprocal, for example, if I have 2/3, right, then the negative reciprocal, and I'll just abbreviate, negative reciprocal would be, first of all, I take the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2, and I change the sign. So this is positive, this becomes negative. All right, so another example, if I have negative 4/5, then the negative reciprocal is, I take the reciprocal, so the reciprocal of, if I just don't worry about the negative right now, the reciprocal of 4/5 is 5/4, and I take the opposite sign. So this is negative, this becomes positive. And then if I look at a integer, let's say 7, then the negative reciprocal, so the reciprocal of 7 is 1/7, and then I change the sign. This is positive, this becomes negative. All right, so that's what I mean by negative reciprocal of a number. Okay, so in this case right here, the slope of this line right here, I'm going to put it right here, the slope is 2. Okay? To find the equation of this line, remember, to find the equation of this line, I have to know two things. So to find the equation of line L, you need to know the slope and a point. Okay, so I got to find the slope. All right, now be careful. The slope of this line here is 2. All right, don't say that the slope of this line is 2. For one thing, they're not parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. These lines right here, those two lines are perpendicular. So this has slope 2, then the slope of the line perpendicular to it has a slope that's the negative reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2, and since this is positive, this becomes negative. And it kind of makes sense because notice that this line falls, right? So this line is falling, so therefore the slope should be negative. And so that's why you see a negative there. Okay, now, and you know a point on that line is -2, 3. All right, so once you have this information, you can now go to point slope form. All right, so remember point slope form is this. It's y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And so all you do is just take this information, substitute into here. It helps, though, remember, to label your point. So this is x1, this is y1. So just make sure you substitute the coordinates of that point into x1, y1. All right, so to make sure you substitute into x1, y1. All right, so I get this. I get y minus y1, which is 3, equals the slope, which is -1/2, times x minus x1, which is a -2. Okay, now, you want to make sure you simplify this right here. So we all know that x subtract -2 means this. So we have y minus 3 equals -1/2 times x plus 2. So that's the answer you want. Don't leave it as x minus -2. You know what x subtract -2 is. That's x plus 2. All right, so that's what you want to write it as. And so therefore your answer so far, so one of them for point slope form is y minus 3 equals the slope times x plus 2. All right. Okay, now you want to transform that, though. You want to go further with this. You want to go further and write it in slope-intercept form. So meaning you want to get y by itself. You want to solve for y. All right, so let's go ahead and distribute the -1/2. So I get, so remember, we're going to transform this into y equals mx plus b. So into slope-intercept form. So we're going to distribute the -1/2. So I get y minus 3 equals -1/2 times x is a -1/2 x. A -1/2 times a positive 2 is a -1. And then to get y by itself, we're going to add 3 to both sides. Notice I'm aligning my like terms. And so I get y equals -1/2 x. A -1 plus 3 is a positive 2. And you're done. That is the equation of this line right here, L, in slope-intercept form. So it's y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Okay? All right, so the equation of line L right here. So first of all, the equation of this line that's perpendicular to it is y equals 2x minus 3. And the equation of this line in point slope form and slope intercept form is this. So I'm just going to write it as y equals, y minus 3 equals negative 1/2 times x plus 2. And then in slope intercept form, we get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. All right, so that was number 2. Okay, now number 3, so let's take a look at number 3. So notice that in 1 and 2, you had the graph shown. All right, so the graphs were shown in 1 and 2. All right, now you can do these problems without the graph being shown. You don't have to see a visual aspect, a visual representation of the problem to do the work, to get the answer. And so that's what number 3 is. So number 3, notice that there's no visual representation of the lines like you were given here. But you can still work the problem. You're going to do this right here. Okay, that same thought process. So the direction says this: use the given conditions to write an equation for the line in point slope form and slope intercept form. All right, so you're told that the line you're interested in passes through this point and it's perpendicular to the line whose equation is this. All right, so I'm interested in the line. So let's go ahead and write like this. So you're going to find the equation of the line. Find equation of line that has this point, 3, -5, that contains that point, 3, -5, and is perpendicular to this line. Okay, but remember, to find the equation of the line here, you need to know 2 things. A point in that line, which I do, and you need to know the slope of that line. All right, well, you're told that this line right here that you're interested in is perpendicular to this line, right? So it's perpendicular to this line. Well, notice that the line here, the equation, is in slope-intercept form. So that's in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So since it's in slope-intercept form, you can now determine the slope of this line right here. So the slope of that line is 1/5. Okay, now let's go back here and determine the slope of the line I want to find the equation of. So these 2 lines, this line and this line, are perpendicular. So remember that what that means about their slopes. Their slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. So if this slope is 1/5, then I come here and I take the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/5 is 5, but I have to change the sign. So if this one's positive, then this has to be negative. And so once you have the slope and a point, then you can go directly to, just like we did before, point slope, and then transform that to slope intercept. All right, so let's go ahead and do the work. So point slope form. All right, so remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And so this is your x1. I'll go ahead and label this x1. This is your y1, and there's your slope. So we get y minus a -5 equals the slope, which is -5, times x minus 3, x1. And just like we did in the previous problem, you need to remember that y subtract -5 means y plus 5, and that's how you want to write it. So y plus 5 equals -5 times x minus 3. And that is, right here, that is the point slope form. So your answer, you're going to say point slope form is y plus 5 equals -5 times x minus 3. Okay, now you want to also write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, right? So slope-intercept form. And all that is you're taking point-slope form and transforming it into slope-intercept form. So meaning you get y by itself. All right, so let's go and do that. So first of all, we're going to distribute the negative 5. So I get y plus 5 equals negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times a negative 3 is a positive 15. And then to get y by itself, we subtract 5 from both sides. So notice I'm aligning my like terms. And so therefore, I get y equals negative 5x plus 10. And so that is the slope-intercept form for the equation of this line. And so you're done. That's it. That's all it is. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4, so notice that these two lines right here were perpendicular. And in number 4, what we're going to look at now is the two lines being parallel. So same set of directions, except instead of the word perpendicular, you're told that the two lines are parallel. All right, so remember, parallel lines have same slope. All right. Okay, so to find the equation of this line right here, this line that contains this point, you need to know two things. You need to know a point in that line, which I do. A point of that line is negative 2, 5, negative 2, negative 5 rather. And you need to know the slope. All right, well, so the slope of this line we know is parallel to the slope of that line. And this is not that bad because notice that this equation here is already in slope-intercept form. So this is slope-intercept form. And so slope-intercept form, remember, is y equals mx plus b. And so therefore, the slope of this line right here that has equation y equals negative 4x plus 2, the slope of that line, the slope of that line is, that's a negative 4x. So the slope of that line is negative 4. Okay, and so therefore, if the slope of that line is negative 4, then what's the slope of this line? Well, it's going to be negative 4 also because those two lines are parallel. So we can put negative 4 right here. And then once you know a point in that line and the slope of that line, we now go directly to point-slope form. And so point-slope form, remember, is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And let's go ahead and label this point as x1, y1. So this is the x coordinate of your point, and this is the y coordinate of your point. We're going to substitute negative 2 and negative 5 into the variables y sub 1 and x sub 1. Okay, so we get y minus y sub 1 is negative 5 equals the slope, which is negative 4, times x subtract x sub 1, which is negative 2. And again, don't leave your answer like this. Make sure you understand that you can simplify this notation here, this operation. So y subtract negative 5 means y plus 5 equals negative 4, and then x subtract negative 2 means x plus 2. And so that is, right here, that is point-slope form. So your answers. So remember, there'll be two answers because you want to write it in both point slope and slope intercept. All right, so point slope form, you're going to say y plus 5 equals negative 4 times x plus 2. Okay, now to write it in slope intercept form, all you do is just transform this equation into slope intercept form. All right, and so we're going to solve for y. So we're going to first of all distribute. So I get y plus 5 equals negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 2 is a negative 8. And then subtract 5 from both sides. And combining like terms, I get y equals negative 4x. A negative 8 and a negative 5 is a negative 13. All right, and that's it. So that is the equation of that line in slope-intercept form. All right, so just remember those equations are equivalent. They're in different forms, but they're equivalent. So you can transform this into this and this into this. Also, if you take any point on this line any point on that line, and substitute into these equations. The left side will equal the right side in both cases. All right, so that was number 4. Now let's look at number 5. Okay, so number 5, this time we have the situation. So first of all, remember in 4 and 3 right here, notice that both of those equations here was already in slope-intercept form, right? So you could easily determine the slope because y was already by itself. The difference between these two and the one we're looking at right now is that this equation is not in slope-intercept form. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work here. So there's a little bit of work involved in order to determine the slope. All right. Okay, so let's look at that. So I want to find the equation of the line that passes to this point or contains that point. So you want to find the equation of this line. All right, so the point on that line is 3, 6, and then we got to find the slope. All right, well, you know that the slope of this line, and the slope of that line are parallel. All right, so meaning that if I want to find the slope of this line right here, then I've got to find the slope of that line. Well, it's not as easy as the other ones, right? Because the other two, y was already by itself. So it's already in slope-intercept form. This is not. So we got to do a little bit of work. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to get y by itself. So there are a couple of things you can do. You could bring the 3y to the other side, which may be a little bit easier. Or you can bring the 6x and -4 to the other side. Does not matter though. You'll get the same answer, and I'll show you. I'll do it both ways. So the most efficient way, just to let you know, is that let's go ahead and bring the y term to the other side. All right. So when I do that, I'm going to add 3y to both sides. So let me just let me just rewrite this over here. So 6x minus 3y minus 4 equal 0. So I'm going to add 3y to both sides. And so when I do that, I'm going to get 6x minus 4 equals 3y. And I'm going to go ahead and transpose the sides. So 6x minus 4 equals 3y means the same thing as 3y equals 6x minus 4. So the left side becomes the right side becomes the left side. And I did that because most students, they prefer to have the variable you're solving for on the left-hand side. And so now to get y by itself, we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. So what you do to one side, you do to the other. And so I get y equals 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times y is y equals. And then notice I'm going to take each of those terms, I'm going to divide by 3. So you want to write them as fractions. So I get 6x divided by 3 minus 4 divided by 3. And notice, so reduce if you can. Make sure you do that. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that's how you want to write it. Don't leave it as 6 divided by 3. Y equals 2x minus 4/3. And go ahead and leave the fraction. If you cannot write as an integer, if it's not reducible, leave it as an improper fraction or a proper fraction. All right, so now we have it in slope-intercept form, right? So this is now in slope-intercept form. So therefore, the slope of that line right here that has this equation, the slope of that line is the coefficient of x. So that's 2. So therefore, what's the slope of that line now? Well, you know that those two lines are parallel. So the slope of this line has to be the same as the slope of that line. So the slope of that line is 2. All right, so notice the work you had to do. So this is now the extra step. So you had to find the slope. Now be careful because you could easily at some point make a mathematical error here. All right, before I go on with this, let me show you another way to get y by itself. So remember what we did was we brought 3y to the other side, and the reason I did that, for the main reason, is because I had a 0 on this side. So all I really need to do is just bring this to the side, and it saved maybe 1 or 2 steps. All right, some of you did not have to do that. You could have just said, let me go ahead and rewrite this over just to show you. You could have said this. You could have said, well, I'm going to keep this term on the left side, I'm going to bring these terms to the other side. So you're going to subtract 6x from both sides, and you're going to add 4 to both sides, right? So 6x minus 6x is 0, negative 4 plus 4 is 0, and so you get negative 3y equals, and then 0 minus 6x plus 4 is a negative 6x plus 4. And then though, and notice when I did this approach, I divided by positive 3. If I do this, you got to be careful. You have to divide by a negative 3. So that's why you got to be a little bit careful when you're dealing with negative signs. And so a negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. 1 times y is y equal. And we have a negative 6x divided by negative 3. Make sure you write it like this. And then plus 4 divided by negative 3. And then simplifying, this becomes y equals a negative 6 divided by negative 3 is a positive 2. That's 2x. A positive 4 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4/3. And notice I get the same thing that I did here. Okay? All right. So now we have the slope right here. So now I can go directly to point slope form. So point slope form. Okay, you're going to say y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So let's call this x1, this y1. All right, so we get y minus y1, which is 6, equals the slope, which is 2, times x minus x1, which is 3. And you're done. That is, well, you're done for point slope form, right? So the answers, so the equation of that line, one of them in point slope form, is y minus 6 equals 2 times x minus 3. All right, now you got to transform this into slope-intercept form now. So slope-intercept form. So that's where we're going to take this right here. We're going to solve for y. So I get y minus 6 equals 2 times x is 2x, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And then adding 6 to both sides, I get y, and this is 0, equals 2x, and this is 0 as well. So that's it. Y equals 2x. So y equals 2x. Now, notice it said write in slope-intercept form, right? So meaning you want it to look like y equals mx plus b. So this is fine. Some of you may want to actually show the b, the y-intercept. So the y-intercept would be y equals 2x, and then the y-intercept is 0. So either one of those is fine. And that's 0 right here, because what's negative 6 plus 6? Well, that's 0, right? So this is 0. Okay, and that's 0 here, so that's why we just have y. All right, so that is number 5. All right, now let's look at number 6. So number 6, we have, you want to find the equation of the line that passes through this point and is perpendicular to this line. So just like in number 5, this equation right here is not in slope-intercept form. So we're going to have to transform it to slope-intercept form. Now the difference is this. So notice that so always read the directions. Make sure you read the directions. So in the directions here, you wanted to write the equation in both point slope and slope-intercept. Now in number 6, you want to write the equation in point slope and general form. All right, so just make sure you always read the directions. Now, general form is this. General form is where it's written as ax plus by plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are integers, so meaning that you don't have any fractions, and you want a, the coefficient of x, to be positive. Okay, so that's what a greater than 0 means. A greater than 0 means a is positive. Okay, all right. Now, most of you, or all of you, will be able to do this very easily because we just did stuff like this. Just make sure when we go over this, you understand how I'm going to write, when I get to point slope form, how I'm going from point slope to general form. Just make sure you follow that process. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we have to write this equation in slope-intercept form. So notice I have a 0 here. So what I'm going to do to make it easier myself is I'm going to bring the y term to the other side. And so let me just go ahead and do the work here. So we have x minus 3y plus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to add 3y to both sides. And so I get x plus 4 equal 3y. And I'm going to go ahead and transpose the sides. So this is 3y equals x plus 4. All right, now to get y by itself, I've got to divide both sides by the coefficient of y, which is 3. So just like this. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times y is y. And you want to write this as two separate fractions. All right, now be careful. This is, so right now, when you write this as two separate fractions, you say x divided by 3, which is fine, plus 4/3, right? But remember, always rewrite the x term to where you can visually see the coefficient of x easily. Meaning that x divided by 3 means the same thing as saying, see this coefficient of x right here is 1, right? So this is the same thing as saying 1/3 x and then plus 4/3. So all I did was I wrote x divided by 3 in equivalent form as 1/3 times x. And now the slope of that line right here is 1/3. Okay? So make sure when you see something like x divided by a number, you always rewrite it as 1 because that's a 1 right here. So 1/3 x. All right. And so therefore, we want to write the equation of the line. So the equation of the line that has point to -8 and that has slope. Well, remember those two lines are perpendicular. And we just found the slope of that line. So the slope of this line here, we just found to be 1/3, right? So therefore, what's the slope of the line I'm interested in? Well, the slope of the line I'm interested in, since they're perpendicular, is the negative reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3, and I take the opposite sign. So if this is positive, this becomes negative. All right? Okay, and so therefore we go, once you get that, you're done in terms of point slope form. You just substitute that into the formula. So point slope form is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And so here's your x1, here's your y1. So we're going to substitute. So I get y minus y1, which is a -8, equals the slope, which is a -3, times x minus x1, which is 2. Okay? And remember, don't say that's your answer. Okay? You have to recognize that y subtract -8 means y plus 8. So that's how you want to write it. So y plus 8 equals -3 times x minus 2. And that is your answer. That is the equation of the line in point slope form. So I'm going to write it like this. Answers. So point slope form, the equation of the line in point slope form will be y plus 8 equals -3 times x minus 2. All right, now remember, the next thing you want to do is you want to put this in general form now, not slope-intercept form, general form. All right, so general form is where you bring every term to one side, and you have 0 on the other side, and you don't want anything to have any fractions, and you want a, the coefficient of x, to be positive. All right, so let's look at this. All right, so the transform to general form, first thing we're going to do is we're going to just use a distributive property. So I got y plus 8 equals -3 times x is a -3x, -3 times a -2 is a +6. And I'm going to bring every term to one side. And so let's just bring everything to the left-hand side. So I get y plus 8. When I bring -3x to the other side, remember we're going to have to add 3x to both sides, so that'll be plus 3x. And I'm going to have to subtract 6 from both sides, so it'll be -6 equals 0. So I just brought these two terms to that side, so that's why the sign changed. And then combining like terms, I get y plus 3x, 8 and a -6 is a +2 equals 0. Now remember, you want to put this in general form. So you want to write in this order. ax plus by equals c. Notice that a, b, and c, the coefficient of x, the coefficient of y, and your constant have to be integers. and the coefficient of x must be positive. So that's how you want to write it. So when I rewrite this and put the x term first, so 3x plus y plus 2 equals 0, and notice that there are no fractions, right? And the coefficient of x is positive. So you're done. There's your answer. So that is general form. So general form is 3x plus y plus 2 equal 0. All right. Okay, let's look at number 7. Okay, so number 7, same type of problem, except notice a point slope in general form again, except now they are parallel. So those two lines are parallel. All right, so let me go ahead and kind of underline that. So those two lines are parallel. Well, so I've got to, first of all, so you're told that this line here that contains that point is parallel to this line, to the equation that, to the line that has this equation. So I gotta solve for y here. So I have 7x minus 6y minus 5 equals 0. So I'm gonna add 6y to both sides. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the y term to the other side. And so I get 7x minus 5 equals 6y, right? And I'm going to go ahead and transpose the sides, although you don't have to. I mean, if you want to, you can go ahead and divide both sides by 6, right, to get y by itself. But make sure you write this as fractions. So this is 6x minus 6 equal y, because 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times y is y. So therefore, the slope of this line right here is the coefficient of x, because this is now in slope-intercept form, which is 7, 6. All right, now I want to find the equation of this line right here. So the equation of the line I'm interested in contains the point -3, 4, and has the slope. All right, so the slope of this line is 7, 6. That line is parallel to this line. So therefore the slopes have to be the same. So the slope of that line is also 7, 6. All right, so now we put this in point slope form. So point slope form, we have y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So here's your x1, here's your y1. So I get y minus y1, which is 4, equals the slope, which is 7, 6, times x subtract x1, which is a -3. All right, now that's a 4 right here. Always make sure you remember about this. So x subtract -3 means x plus 3, and that's how you're going to write it. So y minus 4 equals 7, 6 times x plus 3. All right, so there's your equation of the line in point slope form. All right, so y minus 4 equals 7, 6 times x plus 3. Okay, now you want to write this in general form. Okay, so first thing you're going to do, just like you did in all the other problems, is you're going to go ahead and get rid of the parentheses. So this becomes y minus 4 equals 7, 6x. 7, 6 times x is 7, 6x. And then 7, 6 times 3. So let's think about what that is. 7, 6 times 3, right? So 7, 6 times 3. All right, so that's 3 divided by 1. I can reduce. 3 into 3 is 1. 3 into 6 is 2. And then 7 times 1 is 7. And then 2 times 1 is 2. So that's 7 halves. So that becomes plus 7 halves. Okay, now remember general form means no fractions. You want all of your coefficients and your constant a, b, and c to be integers. I have a fraction here. I have several fractions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clear the fractions. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and clear the fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by the LCD. So the LCD is 6. So I'm going to say, so let me go ahead and rewrite this over again. Y minus 4 equals 7, 6, x plus 7 halves. All right, now I'm going to multiply both sides. Notice I'm putting all these in parentheses both sides by 6. And then you can distribute. All right, now before I go on, notice I didn't have to do that here because if you look at this right here in point slope form, there were no fractions. So notice I didn't have to deal with the LCD. So that one was easy because there were no fractions to begin with. Now there are fractions. So you got to remember some things you learned in the past about when you have an equation with fractions, you're going to multiply both sides by the least common denominator. And so we're going to distribute the 6 on both sides. 6 times y is 6y. 6 times a negative 4 is a negative 24 equal 6 times 7, 6x is 7x rather, 7x. Now, right here, you have 6 times 7 halves. So 2 into 2 is 1, 2 into 6 is 3, and then 3 times 7 is 21. So that becomes plus 21. So notice no fractions anymore. And then all you do is bring all the terms to one side. So I get 6y minus 24. When I bring the 7x to the other side, I get negative 7x because mathematically you're subtracting 7x from both sides. And then you're going to subtract 21 from both sides. You get minus 21 equals 0. So remember, you always want 0 on that side. So no fraction and 0. In particular, also remember a couple other things that I remember. The coefficient of x must be positive. So when I put this writing x first of all, let's go ahead and combine like terms. A negative 24 and a negative 21 is a negative 45. So I get a negative 7x plus 6y minus 45 equal 0. Now, remember, you want the coefficient of x to be positive. All right, to get the coefficient of x here to be positive, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. So let me just kind of remind you. Okay, so remember, you want this to be positive, right? Well, one way to get the coefficient of x to be positive is to multiply by negative 1. But remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So always remember that. What you do one side, you do the other. Now, when I distribute, negative 1 times 7x is a positive 7x. Negative 1 times 6y is a negative 6y. Negative 1 times 45 is a positive 45. And then 0 times negative 1 is still 0. And that's it. That is the equation of the line in general form. So 7x minus 6y plus 45 equal 0. All right, that's number 7. Okay, number 8. So let's look at number 8. So in number 8, you want to write the slope-intercept equation of the function f whose graph satisfies a given condition. So the graph of f passes through this point and is perpendicular to the line whose equation is x equal 3. Okay, now this is a little different to a certain extent than the ones we've had. Notice that this equation here, right here, x equal 3, is a vertical line. Okay, so that's a vertical line. It is, notice there's no y here. There's no y. So since there's no y, this equation has no slope right here. That equation has no slope. All right? So the way you want to think about this is you want to look at the graph. So here's the graph. I'm going to put this right here. Here's the graph of x equal 3. So remember, x equal 3 means that x always equals 3 no matter what y is. So x always equals 3 no matter what y is. So if y is 0, x is 3. If y is 2, x is 3. If y is negative 1, x is 3. So when I plot these points right here, I get 3, 0. Right here. I get 3, 2. And I get 3, negative 1. And so notice I get this vertical line. All right. Now, you're told that this graph, the equation you're interested in, is perpendicular to that line. And it contains the point negative 3, 4. Well, here's the point negative 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the point negative 3, 4. And so So if this line's vertical, okay, that line's vertical, then the line perpendicular to it has to be horizontal. So those two lines have to, so this line has to be horizontal. If this line's vertical, then that line's horizontal. So that's how you get that 90-degree angle. All right. And remember, the slope of a horizontal line is 0. The slope of a horizontal line is 0. So now you know two things. You know the slope, so the equation of the line you're interested in. You know a point of that line. A point of that line is negative 3, 4. And you know the slope is 0. All right. And so therefore, we're going to go ahead and put this in point slope form, just like we've been doing. So point slope form. So we have y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So here's your x1, here's your y1. So I get y minus 4 equals the slope, which is 0, times x minus x1, which is negative 3. Notice this is x plus 3, so y minus 4 equals 0 times x plus 3, but it didn't matter if you made a mistake here, although hopefully you didn't, because 0 times x plus 3 is still 0, so you get y minus 4 equals 0. All right, now, this right here is point slope form. Okay. Whenever you want to write the equation in function notation, you want to put it in function notation. So it says write the slope-intercept equation of the function. So meaning you want to get y by itself. So now we're going to get the y by itself because you want the slope-intercept equation. So I get y equals 4. Okay, now that's not the answer. Although it's the answer in some of the previous problems, this one's not because you want to write this as a function. Okay, you want to write this as a function. But remember, y means the same thing as f of x. So y equal 4 means the same thing as saying f of x equal 4. And that's your answer. So that's the equation. That's the equation of f of x. So the equation is f of x equal 4. Don't just say y equal 4. Say f of x equal 4 because that's what the directions said. All right. And then over here, you want to write in number 9, you want to write an equation of the line through this point and is parallel to this line. And you want to write the equation in one of these forms, whichever one applies. It's either going to be x equal a, it's going to be y equal b, or you're going to write as y equals mx plus b. So sometimes the directions will look like this. It just, all that means is whenever you write the equation, it's going to look like one of these. All right, so this one's not that bad because you want to write the equation of this line that contains this point. So the point is 3, 7, and all you have to do is find the slope. Well, those two lines are parallel. And notice that this is already in slope-intercept form, right? So slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So this is y equals 5x minus 2. So the slope is 5. Well, if they're parallels, that means the slope of this line is also 5. And you want to write this in one of these forms. So let's go ahead and first of all, put it in point slope form. So in point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So here's your x1, here's your y1. So I get y minus y1, which is 7, equals the slope, which is 5, times x subtract x1, which is 3. Now remember, directions didn't say anything about leaving the answer in point slope form. So you want to go further. So you want to get y by itself. And notice that this line's not vertical. X equal a, just like in the previous one, x equal 3 is a vertical line. It's a vertical line because there's no y. You don't see a y. Here you see a y, right? So since I see a y, you want to get y by itself. And so let's go ahead and distribute. So I get y minus 7 equals 5x. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. Add 7 to both sides. We'll get y equal 5x. A negative 15 plus 7 is a negative 8. And there's your answer. So we wrote it in this form. So it looks like this one. All right, so that's the equation of the line. Now notice I didn't have to put f of x here because it says nothing about writing as a function in the problem. See how this said write the equation of the function f. So write your final answer as f of x. If it said that here, then all you would do is say in function notation. Let me just go ahead and do that. In function notation, remember y is the same thing as f of x. So you'd say f of x equal 5x minus 8. Those mean the same thing. They mean the same thing. All right, but that's the answer you wanted. Okay, and then number 10. So a couple more, and I think you should be good with understanding the equations of lines dealing with perpendicular and parallel. Notice almost the same as the previous one. See this right here? Except in the previous one, you could easily find the slope because y was already by itself. Here it's not, but you already know how to do that, right? So let's go ahead. First of all, you're given, you want to find the equation of this line that contains this point. So the equation of line contains the point 6, -4, and is perpendicular to that line. All right, so to find the slope of that line, I first of all have to find the slope of that line. So we get x minus 5y equal -10. I'm going to go ahead and subtract x from both sides. And x minus x is 0, right? So I get -5y equals -x minus 10. Okay, now be careful. There's a lot of negatives around here. So to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by -5. What you do one side, you do the other. -5 divided by -5 is 1. 1 times y is y. Now be careful over here. Remember that you're going to write this as two separate fractions. This means -1. So that means -1 divided by -5x minus 10 divided by -5. Simplify this. You all know that that -1 divided by -5 means a positive 1/5 x. You all know that -10 divided by -5 means a positive 2. And so therefore the slope of this line is 1/5. Okay, so the slope of this line right here, slope of this line is 1/5. That line is perpendicular to this line. So that means then that the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. So if the slope of this line is 1/5, then the slope of this line, first of all, take the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/5 is 5. And then if this is positive, this becomes negative. And so now, again, you want to write this in either where you get y by itself, or if there is no y, you get x by itself. So either it's a vertical line, or it's a horizontal line, or it's a slanted line. All right, so this is your x1, y1. So y minus y1 equals a slope times x minus x1. So y minus a -4 equals a slope times x minus 6. So this becomes y plus 4 equals -5 times x minus 6. So all I did was I just changed this to plus. Now we're going to go ahead and distribute. So I get y plus 4 equals -5x, and then -5 times -6 is a positive 30. And so I do have a y variable, so I'm going to go ahead and get it by itself. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Notice I'm aligning my like terms. 4 and -4 is 0, so I get y equals -5x, 30, and a -4 is a positive 26. And there's your answer. Okay, so that's actually a slanted line. So I had both x's and y's, so therefore it's slanted. So it'll look like this from here. Remember, x equal a number is vertical, y equals a number where there's no x is a horizontal line. That's this right here. So notice y equal 4 is this line. That's horizontal. X equal 3, there's no y, that's a vertical line. And then finally, number 11, you want to write the slope intercept equation of the function f. So notice another function, so we're going to write your answer in function notation, whose graphs satisfy the condition. The graph of f is perpendicular to the line whose equation is 3x minus 5y minus 15 equals 0 and has the same y-intercept as this line. Okay, so notice in all the others, you were actually given a point, right? You actually saw a point. You saw an x and you saw a y. Here, you don't see a point at all. You don't see a point at all, but you have that idea of that y-intercept. The y-intercept is a point in it. Okay, so you want to find the equation of the line. And in order to find the equation of the line, you have to know a point in that line, which you don't. You don't see it right away. And I'm going to just put it like this right now. And you got to find the slope. So to find the point and to find the slope, first thing we got to do is we've got to take this equation right here and get y by itself. So I have 3x minus 5y minus 15 equals 0. So I'm going to just go ahead and add 5y to both sides. So I get 3x minus 15 equal 5y. To get y by itself, because remember you want to write this in slope-intercept form, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And so I get 1 times y is y equal, this is 3/5 x minus 15 divided by 5 is 3. All right, so the slope of this line is 3/5. All right, now the slope of this line, remember those two lines are perpendicular, so that line and that line are perpendicular. So the slope of this line is 3/5. Then the slope of this line is, you take the reciprocal, so the reciprocal of 3/5 is 5/3, and you change the sign. This is positive, this becomes negative. Now, the only other thing we got to determine is a point in that line. Well, this is where this comes in, right here. You're told that this line right here has the same y-intercept as this line. Well, when you get y by itself, isn't that the slope-intercept form? So slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And if I write this in that form, I get y equals 3/5 x minus 3. So my y-intercept is a negative 3. So your y-intercept's a negative 3. Okay, now be careful. You gotta put that as a point though. You need an x and a y coordinate. Well, y-intercept negative 3 means that y is negative. Remember that's where the graph crosses the y-axis, right? So that means that y is negative 3 and x is 0. So therefore this goes here. So y-intercept means that the x-coordinate is 0. So that's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So that hopefully that makes sense to you, right? So when you look at a line that crosses the y-axis, notice that all of these points right here on the y-axis, x is 0 in every case. Okay. And so therefore, this is your x1, this is your y1. You found the slope, so we get y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So remember, in every case, we went straight to point slope form. Now we're going to substitute. Y minus y1, which is a negative 3, equals a slope, which is negative 5/3, times x minus x1, which is 0. Y subtract negative 3 means y plus 3, equal, and then x minus 0 is x, right? So this right here just becomes negative 5/3 x. And all you do is get y by itself. Remember, you want to put this in slope intercept equation. So you want to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides, and so I get y. This is 0. Equal negative 5/3 x minus 3. Now, remember, you're given function notation here. So you write the answer as a function. So y equal negative 5/3 x minus 3 means the same thing as saying f of x equals negative 5/3 x minus 3. And that's the one you want. Okay, you want to you want to write the answer in function notation. And so that's it. So that should help you with with writing equations of lines dealing with perpendicular and parallel.